I can drink my Coke.
All right, guys, we are live on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble. Well, today we're going to have a debate between Constitutional Vet and John Cordisco, and they're going to be debating about term limits. And the first segment we're going to do, they're going to talk about, they're going to introduce themselves. Some of you guys might not know who they are. They're also going to say where they are on the issue and what they believe. So we'll start with Ben first, Constitution Vet.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I'll get started. So give you some context to who I am. I'm currently a history teacher. I teach 6th grade through 12th grade. Before that, I was in the Air Force for almost 9 years. I served my country honorably. I've been all over the world. I've seen amazing things, and I've seen things I hope none of you ever have to see. But yeah, I got out, got my degrees, and now I'm teaching. And basically, within the past couple of years, I've become really interested in understanding our country's history, our Constitution, our government. And ironically, my favorite course to teach is government. I thought I would hate it, but I actually really do love it. I'm not perfect. I have my flaws. And yeah, I'm here to debate. So basically, my main key points is that, number one, I support term limits. The main reason for that is I believe it is a tool that can hold people accountable, and it will keep power in check. If you were a boss of any business, you interview someone, you choose them for the job because they have the experience and they can get the job done. You feel they're coachable, they're teachable, and you feel that they can do good for your company. You hire them, you tell them to get things done, but they never do. They keep saying that they will, but they never actually get the job done. But you have faith in them. You believe that with time and experience, they will eventually master their craft and do what you hired them to do. However, over time, they start using the company credit card, racking up debt continuously without paying any of it off. They're using all of your time and money that you basically allowed them to use. And the moment that you try to let them go and fire them, they then say, oh, guess what? You can't fire me because the board of directors for this job love me. They really love what I stand for. And so, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. You have to just deal with it. That is what's happening in Congress. There are good people in Congress, and there are some good senators and good representatives. But the biggest problem in my eyes is that there are no term limits. And you have career politicians who've been there for 20, 30, 40 years, and they haven't solved anything. And so, again, I'm very interested to hear the other perspective, and that's where I stand.
All right, guys. Now we're going to go with John Cordisco, where he sets on the subject. But first, I'm going to let you guys know, please, if you have any questions on the last segment, we'll have each of them answer the question if you have any questions. So submit them in the comment area.
We're ready to go.
Yep.
Well, first of all, Ben, thanks for your service. And second of all, you teach history, so you know a lot about U.S. history, I assume. I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. We've looked in the past. We'll use your example, just the one you used there about the employee you took a chance on. So your solution is if you have a bad employee, you have to fire all the employees. That's exactly what you're doing. You have a bad employee, I can't get rid of them, so let's just get rid of them all and start over. And every time you have a bad employee, you've got to fire them all. I had a business for over 22 years. You just can't run a business like that. The second of all is you and I are conservative type people. I listen to your channel, Matt as well, and others on here. The fact of the matter is that progressive Democrats and Democrats in general are all about taking away choices. What you're doing is you're taking away somebody's choice to be the representative. I'm assuming this term limit you're referring to is at a federal level because states can do their own thing. I was a councilman in the early 2000s in upstate New York. I was term limited out, 2 4-year terms. First time I won by 17 votes. The second time, for my reelection campaign, I got 65%, over 30 points. That's unheard of. That means the people that I represented thought that I did a very good job, but I had to leave. They had to lose me. And ever since then, we've had clueless progressive Democrats since 2008 to date that make the people in Congress. That's what you're doing. Use an example. Years ago, I'm not sure Woodrow Wilson was president. There was so much corruption going on in the Senate because back then the states appointed the U.S. senators. So they passed a constitutional amendment. You know, as a history teacher, it takes 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states to be ratified. Then sometimes there's a time limit on it as well, like the Equal Rights Amendment technically got voted on but never passed by the states. We have all this corruption in the Senate and at state level. You know what? Let's make it so the U.S. senators are voted by popular vote. Well, how'd that turn out? They even went through the hoops of the 2/3 and the 3/4, which is almost impossible because the founders set it up that way, so you can't change it willy-nilly. That turned out to be a disaster because they went the lazy route. The lazy route is term limits, or in this case, popular vote. That way we can say we solved the problem, but it just made it worse. You want to get rid of people in Congress that aren't doing a proper job, then get off your behinds and get organized in that district, send their opponents money, knock on doors for them, do what you have to do to get the bad guys out. I mean, it's like, we'll say, for example, we're all here on YouTube. And YouTube says, you know, there's a lot of political and news commentators on here like John and Ben and Matt. And we just got so many that we want to give some new ideas and new blood to come in. So what we're going to do is this. You guys get a 5-year deal on YouTube. After 5 years, your channel is deleted and you can't come back. Even though you've got millions of people, you might have 1 million subs like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro. The list is endless. There's a lot of really successful ones. There's a lot of small guys like us. But you've got 5 years to make your mark. Well, what if you're doing it really well and people follow you and you're actually changing hearts and minds? You get thrown out because we want new ideas and new blood. And second of all, what will happen is every time, I'm not sure what kind of years you're talking about in your term limits. I'll assume it's 4 terms in the Congress and maybe 2 in the Senate. Sounds reasonable. Who's really going to be in charge? As you constantly flip and turn, especially in Congress and the House of Representatives, the people that are really going to be running the show more than they are now are the deep state, unelected government employees. Because everybody's going to be new all the time. And they're going to turn to them for guidance every single time because you have no, we'll say, experienced lawmakers there to show them. And the deep state becomes more powerful. It becomes, it gets bigger and larger, and the representatives just become an afterthought. And that's the reality of it. I got a couple other things here, but, YouTube in the 5 years and give other people a chance. What you're doing is you want new, fresh ideas, new, young, fresh ideas. All right, fine. Then elect them. But the thing that gets me the most about the term limit thing, not that it happened to me personally, it's been a disaster ever since here locally. It was a disaster when they changed the amendment for the senators. But the thing that bugs me more than anything else about term limit is the taking away of choices. Democrats are notorious for that. Right now, they're doing it with Trump. They're making it so we can't vote for him. They're taking away one of our choices that we choose, and that is always, always, always wrong. The schools are taking away the choices from the parents, and you know that better than anybody. Taking away your choice. Well, if you don't want to wear a mask, you can't even walk into a grocery store. All these things have been happening for the last 2 years are taking away choices, and this is another version of that. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, John. And now on our second area, it will be rebuttal. We're going to go with Ben first.
Okay, well, thank you. First off, Mr. Cordisco, I love your passion. I love the fire that you got behind this. And obviously, you have a ton of experience in this arena, and I would definitely respect that. You make a lot of great points, and if you'll permit me, I would love to approach each one. One thing that you really focused on was that you feel that term limits would take away choice. And again, you and I actually agree on a lot of things, which is interesting to me. The thing is, one big problem that we have right now is the sheer power of incumbency. You have senators and representatives who have been there for over 20 years. There's no competition. No one wants to try to go against them because what's the point? They're going to stay in there for life anyways. Why should I try? I'll try, but the thing is, I know they have connections to lobbyists and special interests. Why should I even try? But if you know that no matter how big, powerful you get in Congress, if you know that your time will come to an end, that tells the people at the state and district level that everyone will have a chance to actually make an impact. Introducing term limits tells everyday American people that, hey, I know that this senator who's been in Congress for 40 freaking years, I know that they'll be gone, which means I have a fighting chance, which means my competitors can bring in new, fresh ideas. And I do not see term limits as a punishment. You gave me a really personal story, and again, I appreciate that, and my heart goes out to you. But term limits is not a punishment. It's simply meant to hold everyone accountable and keep power in check. We do that for the president. My question is, why don't we do that for Congress? Last time I checked, 36 states have term limits on governors, and 15 states have term limits on their state legislatures. And then you began with the analogy of if one employee is doing bad, we'll fire all employees. Well, no. Term limits is holding them accountable. If one employee is not doing the job right, you can fire that one employee, not all of them. And keep in mind, the choice still falls back on the people in the states. If you feel that your senator and your representative is not doing their job right, you can vote for someone else. Now, of course, if that person gets reelected because they have big money, big connections, okay. But now you know they will eventually leave, and there's always a chance for something better. And so I propose for Senate, limit it to 2 terms, so 12 years, and then 3 terms for the House, which is 6 years. And I firmly believe if you can't get your job done in that amount of time, then you shouldn't be in Congress in the first place.
Are you done, Ben?
Well, that's all I got. Sorry.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Ben is done now. John, it's your turn for your rebuttal.
Oh, well, first of all, and I admire your position in a way, but the reality of it is it's the lazy way out of reforming government. I'll give you an idea. It doesn't make representatives more accountable if they're term limited. And I'll tell you why. Because they can do anything they want to now, and there's no repercussion. You can't vote for me again. And I remember the term limits when I was in upstate New York here in Binghamton. In fact, I was a Democrat back then. I called myself a John Kennedy Democrat. I left the party in 2013. So I was an outcast to the Democrats anyway, because I was old school Democrat. I wasn't a liberal, but I was a moderate. And so it was easy for me to switch to Republican. But the thing of it is, though, it makes you less accountable, because now my term was 4-year term. I'll use a personal example. Now I can do whatever I want and vote for whoever I want, and they can't come after me at the election, the ballot box, because I can't run again. I'm not accountable anymore. I'm not accountable to the voters because they can't vote for me again. And the idea, the fallacy, the urban myth of new, fresh, young ideas is really not true. There are really no new ideas left. We all know exactly what to do. They're not new ideas. And being younger or older doesn't change anything. They give you the fallacy about entrenched politicians. You can't get them out. I hate to use her as an example, but it's true. AOC's a bartender, and she beat the number 4 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Crowley, I believe his name was. Now, only in America could that happen. That was the intention of the founders. I think if some of the founders were here, they would disagree with you greatly on the term limits. Now, they probably never thought they would be, we'll call them professions, but that's a different issue. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Experience is important. I remember my first term on city council, all the new Democrats came to me for guidance. How do you handle this? How do you handle that? You've got nobody at the helm that can show them. Even the Speaker of the House will be new. Who's going to show them how to proceed? The deep state people. And you believe me, you think you're accountable because your term limit out is the exact opposite in the real world. And the road to hell is paved with good intentions, especially. And I'll use the example of the U.S. senators again. They made it by popular vote. How'd that work out so far? It's a disaster because it was easier to say, we'll go by popular vote. That way it will get rid of the corruption. Well, how did the corruption work out? It actually got 10 times worse because now you go to big money corporations. But it was before, it's a state legislature that picked you. Now you have to raise millions and millions, and you're 10 times more corrupt than when you started. It was a good idea, but it was the lazy way to go about it. It's like term limits is a lazy way. Because if you have bad representatives like Crowley in Queens, New York, a 30-odd-year-old bartender can take your spot. That's what the founders had set up. So it's harder to get an entrenched person. Yeah, you're right. It is. I beat an entrenched Republican and won by 17 votes because I worked my behind off, knocked on doors. That's how you get rid of bad people, just like Crowley got rid of. And you can go through the list over the last 50, 100 years of people that came from I hate to use the guy's name. Look at Barack Obama, junior senator, came from nowhere and became president. So it happens all the time. And there really is no new ideas. There really isn't. That's a fallacy. I saw a Ben Shapiro video. He says there really isn't any new ideas. We all know what to do. We just need to do it. So being new doesn't mean you're going to do the right thing. And being entrenched out for years doesn't mean you're going to do the wrong thing. Again, it's about choices. You're taking away the choices of the people in the congressional district you are. You're doing it. Just like on YouTube. You get 5 years and you're gone. You could be the best YouTuber there is on politics, but you're automatically gone because we want to make room for new people. It's not right. And it's not about the easy way out. To clean up this mess is going to take decades, and it's going to take a ton of hard work. And term limits will just make us a temporary fix. But in the end, it'll be worse than when we started.
Are you done, John?
About the topic in this debate so far, but in real life, no.
All right, guys. We have one more. We have 2 more segments. The next segment, it's going to be free for all. They're going to be talking to each other and having a conversation. It's going to be about 10 minutes. So remember, if you have any questions for either one of them, please put it in the comment section, and I'll bring them up in the 4th section so they can answer it. All right.
Like I said, I'm not comparing a city council seat to a federal position, of course, because of responsibility. But I think the theories are the same. And it's about our Second Amendment rights. Choices are being taken away from us. Our votes are not being counted because of mail-in ballots or canceling them out. Our choices, again, are gone. As we see our choices being taken away, and every topic that you can think of, this is just another choice being taken away from us. Just because you're new does not mean you have new ideas. There aren't any, and it doesn't mean you're going to do a proper job. It just doesn't guarantee that. You don't fire all the employees, and that's what term limits is doing. It's firing all the employees and starting over. And you can call it what you will, but it still is.
So you and I agree on a lot of things. I'll say that again, but I think our ideas on the solutions to some of the problems might be different. We both feel the same way as far as where the corruption lies, what's really going on. And we both acknowledge a lot of the BS that's existing right now in our government. I completely agree with you on that. But I feel term limits is a possible solution to the problem. You listed all the problems. Great, awesome. Check. But I'd like to hear a solution. I feel term limits is a solution to that problem. In my eyes, it's something. And the fact is, right now, without term limits, let's see, we currently have a national debt of $30 trillion. We're sending billions of dollars to foreign countries that we shouldn't be. We have a broken healthcare system, broken immigration system, insider trading issues, national security issues, hyperpartisanship. And the fact is, we have people making law who, well, to be quite frank with you, are too damn old to be in that position. They have no idea what's really going on with their people. They're out of touch. And so, you're going back to taking away the power of choice. We have no choice as it is. Right now, the system is broken as it is. And so, again, I feel term limits is a solution. Now, to be fair, I'm open to other ideas. I'm more than willing to hear other thoughts. But again, the way it is right now is obviously not working. And a lot of Americans support term limits. Now, going back to the experience, you made a great point. When you come into Congress, without term limits, you have a wealth of experience you can draw from. You're new in the House, you're new in the Senate. You can go to people who've been there for decades, and they can guide you. But that can easily be fixed. Now, keep in mind, I'm not coming from a wealth of experience. I'm coming from someone who has experience in the military side. I spent a big chunk of my life serving in the military. And no matter where you go, there is always something documented, whether it be regulations, continuity, SOPs. There's always something documented, written in stone. This is how you do things. There's a high turnover all the time of people serving in government positions, which is the military. And you do the same job. So when it comes to serving in that new position and you don't know what to do, figure it out. Look at the written SOPs, look at the written guidance, and go according to that. Ultimately, the goal is no matter who is in that office, they know how to get the job done. And they won't have to rely on, hey, I'll help you if you support this thing. Hey, I'll give you money if you support this thing. That eliminates that completely. And so, again, I respect your passion. I love where you're coming from.
Well, can I cut in here when you say we have to do something? The thing is so broken, we have to do something. You're using the exact same argument the progressives are using on gun control and shootings in schools. We have to do something. We have to do something. We have to do something. Well, what you're going to do is wrong. It doesn't matter. We've got to do something. You're using the exact same argument the progressives are using on guns. You are. Yeah, I don't think you realize it or not, but you are, because it's so bad. We have to do something.
Yeah.
Well, not that great what it is, but let's give it a try just in case.
But here's the thing. With gun control, that whole debate is, should we take away the fundamental human right to keep and bear arms?
That's a different issue.
Well, no, that is the Second Amendment.
No, I'm using the point. I'm using the humanity point. Okay. We have to do something. We have to do something. Now, the constitutionality, but it's a separate issue. It's so bad that we have to do something. So let's try this to see if it works. Well, it's not going to work. But it makes you feel good temporarily.
Okay. So then what's your solution? I mean, I think you and I can agree that there's a large swamp of corruption and dirtbags in our government right now.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, of course I agree.
What do we do about it?
But the term limits is not the solution. It's like having a brain tumor and saying, I'm having terrible headaches, so my doctor gives me a painkiller. Instead of going after the brain tumor, he just stops the pain. And that's what term limits really does. It doesn't solve.
So how do we
and what makes it, How do you get rid of the tumor? It's going to
Yeah.
take a long, hard. People are going to have to get off their behinds and help candidates and knock on doors, put up lawn signs, do all the legwork you have to do. And that's too much like work. It's easier just to vote on something and pass an amendment to the Constitution, which would be almost impossible to do anyway. And on top of that, is now instead of enriching themselves over a 20, 30 year period in the House, you get enrich yourself in 6 years. So let's get greedier faster. It's not going to change anything. And you as a religious person know, we all know that humans are fundamentally flawed in the same way.
Well, of course.
And so they're just going to accelerate their getting more wealth and stock inside training. It's not going to change anything. You're taking power away from people.
So, I mean, again, like I love where you're coming from because you clearly have a personal connection to this. I don't. And so I look at this with a different mindset.
Well, I would feel the same way if I wasn't elected before.
So here's the thing. When it comes to the topic of experience, you said, oh, they'll just get greedy in a shorter time period.
Yep.
Well, they need experience. Okay, but here's the thing. If you stay in Congress with no term limits, you're just focusing on re-election. There's no promise. There's no guarantee that your people that you voted on will actually take care of the problem.
And what does a person that focusing on re-election, the good ones, what do they do?
Well, again, the good ones will know, okay, my time will come to an end. And so if that's the case, I will then focus my efforts finding and helping people in my district.
No, they'll have the opposite effect. It'll have the opposite effect because now you're not accountable anymore. You think you're accountable, but you're not. The only weight that's hanging over your head, so to speak, is the fact that I can be voted out. But if I know at the end of this is my last term, I can do what the hell I want now. And I don't have to be accountable to anybody or any of my constituents because they can't vote for me again.
That's already happening. There's already no accountability.
Not at all. Not at all. Because the other side's just not strong enough to have a decent candidate up against some of these entrenched. Like we use Maxine Waters, who's got the IQ of a guppy. Okay.
I agree with you on that.
I mean, and that's a pretty high bar in Congress being dumb. All right. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, the Republicans in California and it's like down in New York City just don't want to fight back. They don't want to put up candidates. They don't want to raise money over a period of time. It's going to take years to get rid of these entrenched people. So the easy way out is, well, let's just term limit them. We don't have to work that hard. And it's going to be impossible to get the 2/3 and the 3/4 anyway. So let's just tell the truth.
That's very interesting that you automatically equate term limits as we're not going to work that hard. But the thing is,
no, it's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Okay, what'd you say?
I said the entrenched, whether it's R or D, the opposite side says, we're not going to get them out. Why should we waste our time and money? And they go in other districts where they should be going after them over years and over time. And eventually, like Crowley with ALC, they'll get out. They're just too lazy to make the effort on all the seats. They want to concentrate on a few.
And so I'm going back to the idea of term limits. How would that make it worse?
How would that make it?
It's already terrible as it is. So how is a new idea,
You're saying they're unaccountable now.
Right, they are.
Well, they're not. Technically, on paper, they're not. I use AOC again. They're held accountable eventually if the opposition puts up enough resistance and puts up enough and it connects with the people what they want in that congressional district. I'll use that. If they're not doing it.
If that's the truth, then why is Nancy Pelosi still in the House?
Because she runs a district in San Francisco.
If that's the truth, why is Mitch McConnell still in the Senate?
Same thing. The state loves them.
Well, that's the thing. Do they really?
If you believe in states' rights, you can't believe in term limits.
Now, see, I'm not sure I support that because currently
states' rights is about their choice. A state's choice whether to have an abortion a certain amount of weeks, marriage. Right. The list is endless. Driver's licenses. The list is endless. So you're giving a state a choice, and now you're taking away a choice from individual people.
But here's the thing. I want to end on one thing, if you'll permit me. Going back to the idea that term limits is no solution at all. You can't fix it. It's not going to be good.
No.
This kind of proves my point. You come from a very long line of experience. I am that young fresh person who's saying, hey, let's try something new. This might just work because nothing else has worked.
It might
I don't want to take on
just work.
the view of just say, we're not going to try it. No, it's not going to work.
It
Because here's the
might.
thing. Here's the
That's a
thing.
roll. That's a roll of the dice. That's a dangerous thing.
But here's the thing. We took a massive gamble when we elected a guy who had no political experience whatsoever. Donald Trump did countless achievements in just 4 years. And I can
I'm
go
a
down the
huge.
list if you
I'm
want
a
me to.
huge Trump fan. I'm a huge fan.
So am I. But that's my point. He had no experience, and yet in just 4 years,
Yeah, he did though.
he
He
accomplished
did.
a laundry list of achievements.
No, he did. He had a lot of life and business experience, and he had political experience. He just wasn't running for office.
And so, if we term limit the president, why can't we term limit Congress?
So you're going to compare a once in a lifetime or a once in a century president with what is there 400 and something Congress members.
Well, so to say that you need experience to be in Congress is irrelevant because one guy made huge progress in the nation in just 4 years with no political experience.
I'm saying he's the exception to the rule. He's the winning lottery ticket. And
But
you think
before
all the
he
rest
got
of them are going to be
elected,
winning
everyone
tickets
was
too.
saying it can't be done. It's not possible. There's no point. He's not going to get elected, and yet he did.
It's dangerous
so-
because every time you say we don't know what to do, let's try this, it might work. Always ends up badly.
Our country was founded off of the idea of, hey, this idea called a constitutional republic might work.
And they
risky,
messed
but we
with
did it.
the Constitution on the senators and many other things. It has come back to bite us in the butt and made it 10 times worse without exception.
So again, I agree with you on a lot of things. And to be honest with you, it seems like you have a very, very negative view, but that comes from your experience. I have a very hopeful and positive view from.
So do
your
I.
experience.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and now we're going to go to the questions. Don't have any yet, but I was going to say, how about we find a middle of the road here? Maybe not term limits, maybe where we make it where you can't be in the stock market and be in Congress or Senate. You can't
I'd go along with that. That would be fair to monitor it.
Because the fact is, you have like people like Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell. Those people, no matter what side they're on, they're benefiting with their power in the Senate and the House and using it to get wealth. And so is the president does it as well. If you want to, a perfect example is that is Obama. When he got in there, he was worth $3 million. When he got out of there, he was worth $30 million.
Yeah,
so it kind of goes with your argument about they'll just do it faster.
But you got to remember at the same time, their insider trading is what you're talking about. Is probably specifically. You got to remember at the same time, just because you're elected official doesn't mean you don't have rights that everybody else has. You want to write a book and make a bunch of money.
Well, you know what?
Invest in stocks. You just be careful that you don't take away rights.
You know what? You might. That's true. But the fact is, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can be a politician and have stocks in the stock market, is there? No. There isn't anything in there. So my thing is, if you want to stop the corruption, take the money out. I'm sorry, but people going in there and making $170,000 a year and coming out billionaires, that's ridiculous. But anyway, go ahead, Ben.
I agree.
Go ahead, Ben.
To go on this common ground, if term limits is not going to be an option, then I suggest when you are elected to Congress, Senate, or House, okay, instead of collecting millions of dollars, your salary will be capped at a certain amount. And that amount is not going to be that much. Okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean capped? It's capped at 170,000 now.
So the way it works in the military, I'm comparing this to the military. Okay.
No, I'm talking about Congress.
Yeah, I'm comparing that to the military. So in the military, when you join, okay, regardless of what your job is, regardless of what branch you're in, everyone is provided free housing, free healthcare, all the government benefits.
All right.
And your pay is based off of your rank and years of service, and everyone can see that. Okay.
Right.
So my idea in Congress, if you get voted to the Senate or the House, every term, your salary goes up a little bit, but everyone gets the same housing. as a senator or house or representative, you are not allowed to have billion-dollar mansions. You will have a very basic apartment or house if you have a family.
You
will
sound like
be
you sound
provided-
like AOC.
You'll be provided a basic needs. And the reason why I'm
No.
saying this,
Come on.
transportation will be provided because they already get free transportation. They already get all that
I
stuff.
don't think that's the wrong
And
way, but
please
that's
let
an
me finish.
incredibly
Please let me
ridiculous
Please let me
example.
finish. Please let me finish. My whole mindset on this, if you get to Congress and if you are reminded every day that you are a servant to the people, not their rulers, if you are not allowed to have anything higher than a very basic needs, then I think that will help a lot of the corruption issues. Because again,
So
the
you're
people
gonna
vote for you
you're gonna have elected officials, and you're gonna tell them where to live.
because the people vote for you. And whenever you get into that position of power, you are reminded daily to stay humble because you are their servant. I do not think a representative or senator should be able to have billions of dollars in money.
Putting
mansions.
religious views on things like Congress is probably not a very good idea.
Well, it's not just religious. It's just
Well,
the
it
fact that
sounds
if you
extremely
stay in
religious.
power, if you
Well-
stay in power and remain and not have anything keeping you in check,
But that's
Then
that's
that's dangerous.
not a solution to anything. Making them live somewhere, they can get another house somewhere else. They can still have their house in their district or buy another house and just say, I live here, and they really don't live there. Your name's on the mailbox. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
but again, it's yet another idea. I'm not saying it would work, but it's an idea. And
Well, if you can come up with some, if you can come up with new ideas, come up with ideas.
new ideas, and just saying no, all
That's
that won't work.
and that's
Okay.
that's the danger of these new ideas are basically worthless.
All right, I got someone, American Exile. He says lobbyists are a huge problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got a First Amendment
agree.
issue there too. Yeah, that's the
agree.
problem.
Yeah.
We can't only go along with the parts of Constitution that we like to solve problems. Lobbyists have a big First Amendment issue, and the court's been tested ad nauseum, Supreme Court and below. Now, what happens after a person gets out of office and these organizations hire them and give them a lot of money? There's not a lot of heck of a lot I can do about that.
Here you go.
Once they're out of office,
Here's a question from William Marchball.
Sure.
Do you think a politician should be paid on their ability to do their job like a private citizen?
Okay, who gets to decide who gets to decide if they're doing their job?
The people in the
And the
states
district
and
they
in the
represent. In the district they represent, correct?
in the districts and the states, yes,
Okay. And that is done every 2 years. It's called an election.
right. But if they are
So
an
no,
incumbent with
you
24
how they
years
held
experience-
accountable. They're held accountable every second November. That's where the accountability is. That's where you see if you're doing a proper job or not. That's the only way you can do it. Everything else is just somebody's opinion.
Well, elections
All
can
right.
still happen. It just there'll come a time when you gotta step down, just like presidents.
You got to step down.
Yeah, just like presidents.
It's a whole different thing. A president represents an entire branch of government. An individual Congress member doesn't.
Well, they represent the states, which are very powerful.
No,
and
they
mean a lot.
represent a very tiny percent of a state. The president represents the entire executive branch, period, one person.
And Congress represents the people,
Not individual Congress members. They represent their districts.
which
They don't
compose of
represent-
the people.
They don't represent an entire branch of government. That's why there's term limits for president and not senators and congressmen, because it's oranges and apples.
Well, there's term limits for president because of FDR. that's the reason, because he's the one the exception that he didn't follow the rule that wasn't there. He didn't follow it.
Let's go back to where we started. You're a history teacher.
Hmm?
You know it takes 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states to ratify after that. The chances of term limits going through are 0. And you know that as a history teacher through the amendment process.
That's if the states begin the process, there is a chance. And if you get enough states that push this
You're
forward,
talking about a convention of states.
yeah,
It still has to have, all convention of states does is circumvents the Congress.
right,
It still has to go 3/4 of the states.
right, exactly.
Good luck with that.
I think it's possible.
It's possible the aliens could come too, but we're
No,
not
it's
going to
not.
put that in the conversation.
That's not possible. It is
Well,
possible.
you
states
you
come
just
together.
did.
No, what I'm trying to say is that we can say everything's possible, and it's incredibly unlikely. So all you're really doing, and don't take this the wrong way, because you seem like a nice guy, and I appreciate your service. So this isn't personal. All you're doing is virtue signaling. That's all you're doing. You're using the same tactics that the people that we don't like in government does, the progressives. All these things that they complain about and the ideas to change them, won't work. But you do that just to show you're on that side. That's virtue signaling.
And
How's it virtual? How's it virtual signaling?
Because Ben
No,
knows.
no. Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Sure.
How's it virtual signaling when it's just an idea? It's an idea, and and the thing is, you haven't during this whole argument. I shouldn't even get involved in it, but
No, go ahead.
I want you to come up with a solution.
I had the solution. I gave you one. You weren't listening.
What is that? Go and try to get people to go and vote.
Groom good candidates,
right.
knock on doors. That's the way it's always been.
The question: how do you do that when it's already rigged? How do you do that?
It's already rigged. How?
But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. How you do that?
Illegal stuff or legally?
Anyway, how do you fix things or try to make it where it's actually going to be fair for everybody? If it's already been predetermined.
You're talking about equity now.
No, when it's already been predetermined. When it's already been predetermined already.
There's two versions of rigged. There's one illegal and one legal. You're in a trench.
Either way, you're circumventing the people's will when you're doing it.
You're circumventing the people's will by having term limits when you have a good Congress member as well.
No, you're not. They could choose. They could vote for the person that's in the same party as them. This is going to have the same.
It's not the same person. Come on. You saying all Republicans and Democrats think alike and they're all the same? You know better.
Anyway, go ahead, Ben.
So, again, to bring us back full circle, John, you and I both agree that there is corruption. I have ideas. This is an idea. Will it work? I don't know. But at the same token, everything in our nation's history began as an idea. Everything. And at some point, there was someone who has more experience that says that will never work. It's not possible, won't work. And yet,
that's why they rewrote the Constitution. They had about 10 different versions of it before they came to something because they said this wouldn't work.
2 years ago. That's it. 2 years ago. The term conservative and liberal has changed drastically.
That's culture. That's not government.
Well, hold on a second. 2 years ago to where we're at now, you have people coming from both sides coming to a common understanding of this is no longer about Republican, Democrat, Independent. This is about the people versus tyrants.
Who's coming together? Who's coming together? Nobody's coming together. That's the problem.
I disagree.
There's no consensus.
I disagree. 2 years ago, you would have never seen guys like Russell Brand or Joe Rogan call out the tyrants for what they are. 2 years ago, you have never seen people come out of the woodwork, making YouTube channels, doing their part, saying, hey, this is no longer a problem between Democrats and Republicans. This is an issue between the people being ruled by tyrants. This is a problem when you have people in power to have no accountability.
And there are also many congressional people and senators saying the exact same thing you are and calling truth to power, and you want to get rid of them.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Term limits gets rid of those people. And saying we're going to vote for the same party again is nonsense.
Because guys like Ted Cruz support this idea, and he's been in the Senate for a long time. So term limits is not meant to be a punishment. It's simply keep people accountable.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's something new. Let's try it. Well,
yeah, because it's better than
but you're gambling.
Everything is a gamble. Everything.
That's why certain things were set in the Constitution and they were made almost impossible to change just for this reason.
But see, here's the problem though. This goes back to my point. Here you have a new perspective saying, hey, we could try this. And sadly, and I'm not trying to insult you. You're a really cool guy and I respect your experience. But this is the problem. When someone new comes up and says, I have an idea, you are smacking the idea down saying, no, it won't work, not possible. With
Because you
term
think
limits,
you
it
think that you
creates-
think term limits is a new idea? That's because you're younger and you're fresh mentally. That all of a sudden all these you don't have any new ideas. These ideas have been tested and talked about for decades,
and yet they're
hundreds
still
of years.
prevalent. And yet
Why
they're still
haven't they
prevalent.
been done? Because it doesn't work.
And yet it does work in 36 state governor positions and 15
And
state
they
legislatures.
have the legal authority to do that.
And I believe that at some point, if the
You
state
and I-
can get to 3/4, they
You-
can make an amendment.
It'll never happen.
I think it can.
All right. Here's another idea.
Sure.
Get rid of political parties. If you look into Federalist Papers, majority of the founding members were against the political parties and the ideas of political parties, because political parties are tyranny. They bring tyranny because they bring it. Bring a ideology to the political process and to the and is what, in their opinion, is
Hey,
what was what. Let me finish. Is
How
in
do you
their
do that?
opinion. In their opinion, it was the major cause of of the downfall of England and their political process there.
Well, they have a parliamentary system that's different.
Yeah, but still, it's a political process, and they had political parties. Even then, they did.
All government does.
But the point is, they didn't believe that. They if you looked at the elections from the first 100 years, you had Democrats running against Democrats. You had Whigs running against Whigs. You had whoever they wanted in running for president. They didn't care. It didn't matter what political party you were. My point is, instead of worried about the political party you're in,
Okay.
and worry about the person who's running, not the political
Okay.
party.
Okay. So how legally do you do that? How do you do that
Easy.
legally?
Easy. Stop funding the federal government. Stop funding the DNC and the RNC. Once that happens, they're gone.
What federal money does the DNC and the RNC get as a percent of their money? Do you know?
I think it's around 20%.
I doubt if it's 5.
I'm pretty sure it's 20%. Last time I looked.
People, even in Washington, like-minded people band together because there's strength in numbers, both socially, culturally, and politically. That's the nature of human beings. You can say, well, we're not going to call it a party, but you're going to have like-minded people, like conservative people banding together. It's going to come out the same. You can just call it something else. You can call it turnip, a tomato. It doesn't make it that. It's the same.
Well, you are right. There will always be parties. There will always be political division because we're human beings. Like, that's always going to happen. I feel that term limits can open the door to new parties, new ideas. It can give people in their parties a fighting chance.
There are no new ideas.
See, I disagree with you on that. I think
Name one new idea that hasn't been tried in the past. Name one.
The moment you squash any discussion or any hope of new ideas.
No, that's not what I asked you. See, you're a good politician. You talk. I asked you a question, but you say something else. I answer the question directly.
So
I said, name one thing that you have that's a new idea that's never ever been tried before or thought about doing.
Donald Trump was the new idea.
That's an individual.
No one said that would be done.
We're talking about laws here and talking about governance.
Hold on a second. You asked me what's a new idea.
John Kennedy was new.
Exactly. JFK was a new idea.
Which was my hero as a boy.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. I think JFK was a phenomenal
That's an individual. He wasn't a new idea. He said that Trump said the same things Ronald Reagan said.
Hey, but the fact is he would never have been in there if you didn't have term limits.
What do
Donald
you
Trump, Donald Trump represented
JFK. He would never have been president if he didn't have term limits.
Johnson decided not to run.
Anyway,
that's not true. That's not true. Johnson did not get term limited out. He decided not to run.
Donald Trump represents
who was president
the
before.
American people. He represents somebody who
or Eisenhower, excuse me.
He was not a politician his whole life. He was a businessman. And to be fair, I don't agree with everything that he says or does. And yes, is he an asshole? Absolutely.
But what new ideas did he have? What did he bring to the table that wasn't talked about ad nauseum for the last 100 years? Look it out for your own people and your own country first. That's been talked about for 100 years. That he had no ideas. The only difference was he knew how to implement them.
Okay. he knew how to implement them. And for
But,
the, and so
but he
for the
had
first
no new
time
ideas, and neither do you, and neither do I.
I think we're disagreeing on just the term new idea. The fact is, in just 4 years, Donald Trump accomplished 7 million new jobs.
I know all the talking points.
Right. The point is,
No, we need
before
somebody.
he became elected,
No, here's what we need. We need individuals and representatives in Congress, in the presidency, and in the U.S. Senate that will find a way politically through government to implement the ideas we've been talking about for a century.
Okay,
That's not new ideas.
I agree with you on that. It's just the way we accomplish that. You feel that keeping the way it has been is a solution when it comes to term limits. I feel introducing term limits is a possible way to...
Possible way. And if it goes horribly wrong, how do you take that back? How do you go back? You can't. And hell's a long ways down, and it's hard to come back from that far of a fall. If this goes horribly wrong, it goes back on yourself.
We are already in a hellish situation. We're already
really? Ask the people who lived through the Depression. Ask the people who lived through the Civil War. We've been a lot worse off than what we are now.
Well, that is true. But look at where we're at right now. Look at how horrible things are going in our country. We're already in a terrible situation.
Sure.
To say that there's no possible solution.
So we have to try something. Let's try something. And if it doesn't work, then what happens? You can't come back from it.
Hey, I need to actually correct John. Whenever Eisenhower left office, he couldn't run again.
I just misspoke.
Okay. I'm about to say he couldn't run again because his term
No, I just misspoke. I just misspoke because I was thinking of a different president.
I know. But JFK, but okay. All right.
But I don't mind the term limits for president because of the fact that they run the entire branch of government. They have a lot more power in one person. So I don't see it's oranges and apples compared to Congress.
I think Congress has way more power.
Not as individuals, they don't. Not as individuals, they don't. Go back to the political parties, though. You said, Matt, people are going to band together. That's just human nature. And so it's not really going to change anything. I mean, you can call it something else, but it'll still be a group of people working together, trying to push their ideas and their candidates.
Well, the thing is, when people band together, a lot of times people get shut down. Perfect example of that is someone like Joe Manchin, who is really, I'd say he's an old-time Democrat, pretty much like you were back.
But he's a grifter.
Yes, but anyway. In my opinion, he has no party to go to. He has no option but to go to the Democrat Party. If there was no parties and everything, he could run on his individual name.
Then have him as an independent.
Well, that's fine. But my point is not to have parties. And if you don't have party, and not only that, let me finish. Allow the independent candidates actually go to the debates. People that are in the Libertarian Party, people in the Green Party, Socialist Party. I don't care what party they're from. They should be able to go to the debates with the other.
Have their own debate.
Other presidential. Well, no one broadcasts. So
we've got YouTube, we've got Rumble, we've got all kinds of places now. You can broadcast all over.
That ain't the point. You're sidestepping the point. The point is the reason they're able to do that is because they own the media. And the reason they own the media is because of the money that they get from the government and stuff like that. I just think best thing to do is get rid of political parties and run as an individual, and that would I think that pretty much fix
so then
all the issues.
Then what would happen is a bunch of people that were formerly Republicans, now that's banned, will band together and get behind one candidate and push it. It will come out the same.
Actually, what you'll see is multiple Republicans, multiple Democrats. You'll see multiple everything, because then you don't need primaries. You would have 20, 30 people running for president in one election. Do it.
Yeah, then you get less than 40%, and the House of Representatives decides who the president is.
Go ahead. Hey, they represent the people, don't they?
It's happened twice, I believe.
Once. But anyway, go ahead.
No, John Quincy Adams and what was he? There was one more.
So
it's just John.
So going back to what you were saying, I had to think about it for a second, and I appreciate you giving me the time to think about it. You said you try it. Well, if it doesn't work, then what? Okay. What's the worst case scenario? Like, I really want to hear this. If term limits are created, and that is 2 terms for the Senate, which is 12 years,
All right.
and then 3 terms for the House, which is 6 years. If term limits are created for Congress, what's the worst that can happen? Worst case scenario in your view?
I can only go by historical precedent when we try to change the Constitution, which I think should be etched in stone. That's why they made it so difficult to change, because the willy-nilly, we got to do something. And that's what the founders said no to.
Right.
And as
I
a history
agree with you on
teacher,
that.
and I think term limits is, we've got to do something, so let's try this. That's willy-nilly.
I agree with you on that, but keep in mind, whenever you have multiple states who agree on this, I don't think it's willy-nilly. But again, to go back to my question, what
could possibly happen? Well, if I knew that, I wouldn't be doing this.
Well, hold on a second.
I would be the smartest person in the world if I could predict the future. I can only go by what's happened in the past when we've changed things.
Hold on a second.
And they've gone wrong.
What's the worst case scenario? Give me a situation.
You can't predict the future. I can tell you what's happened. Worst case scenario with things we changed that went wrong.
Okay, then that's fair.
The election of U.S. senators was a disaster.
But
it was made it 50 times. Look at prohibition.
Again.
I'm telling you the changes that were made. I'm telling you the disasters that became of them. How can I predict how bad a disaster is going to be in the future? If I knew that, I would be God.
If you can't predict how bad it's going to be, then why are term limits?
Are you serious? That statement? Did you just say that's for real? Listen, if you can't predict how bad it's going to get, so let's try it instead.
I asked you to provide me what's the worst case scenario. Let's just say term limits are a thing. Okay. In your review, term limits is going to be a hellscape. Okay. How? Please provide me how.
Well, first of all, the deep state will be 10 times more powerful than they are now, because they'll be the real government, and the congressional members will just be window dressing.
Okay, how?
How? They won't know what they're doing there. They're all brand new, and they take the lead from the deep state government employees who are unaccountable, unelectable, and unnamed.
Now, again, how? How will new people?
Because they won't know what they're doing.
But if there is a documented standard, an SOP or continuity written for everyone.
There's a documented standard when I came a councilman, but you still ask the other council members, how do you get things passed? How's the process work? Just because it's written down doesn't mean it's the same in real life.
But here's my point, though. If you have a new person coming into Congress, we can't assume that they're not going to know what they're doing.
Well, they'll have the nuts and bolts and how to put a piece of legislation together, how to bring it to the floor for a vote, how it goes through committees.
Okay.
But that doesn't tell you the nuts and bolts of how things really work, because you're dealing with humans. You're not dealing with robots and machines.
So how do things really work?
How do you get a bill passed when they're in the minority? Those things are important to know.
Sure.
And they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that in the rules. You learn that from people that have been there, that have gone through the process. Here's the best way to get something done. If you want to get X done, try this route. Go to this committee chairman. Go to this person, and they'll help you along. But the rules won't show you how to do that.
So going back to my original question, when I asked you, provide me the worst case scenario, your situation, your worst case scenario is.
That's not the worst case scenario.
Hold on a second. When I asked you to provide me the worst case scenario, you said we have a bunch of new guys coming in with no experience.
You can't answer a hypothetical.
Why is that?
You can't answer a hypothetical question. Nobody can.
Exactly, and that's why it goes back
to me. It's not worth the risk, because I go by historical precedent. When the Constitution or major things have been changed, it's always come back to bite everybody in the ass times 10, without exception. I have to go by. And as a history teacher, I'm surprised you don't think that way as well.
Here's the thing. I do think historically as much as I can, and I do learn from the past as much as I can. But
obviously not that much.
But to automatically cancel anyone from saying, hey, here's a possible solution, it's not.
You're naive.
I may be naive right now, but at least I have ideas. To be honest,
what do you think? That's a new. You make it sound like a brand new idea. You sound like AOC. You really do, honestly.
Okay, listen. I've been respectful to you.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that. What I'm trying to say is, she says the same thing. Let's try this. Let's try that. These things have been talked about.
I need you to be respectful to me too, please. Do not compare me to that Marxist tyrant. Okay. Now, I respect your background. I do. I respect where you're coming from. But I asked you for the worst case scenario if term limits are passed. And to be honest with you, what you gave me didn't sound like it was horrible. I think that if you introduce this new term limits, I truly believe
You can't
it will
predict.
keep people accountable.
It's a hypothetical that you can never answer ever. As a history teacher, all you know is what's gone in the past, what's worked, and what's had. You make it sound like term limits are a brand new, fresh idea. They're not. They're an old, worn out idea. And why haven't they been done until now? Because people lack the will? I doubt that.
And this is why so many people don't want to challenge incumbents. It's like, what's the point? What's the point?
No,
I know that they'll win anyways. I know they have the backing.
And I
of
wasn't
lobbyists and
compared to
special
AOC. I was compared to how she handles government. There's a difference.
Well, I agree with you. She handles government like an idiot. I agree with her on that. But I do
Because
not
she
think-
has all the fresh new ideas. Well, all the things she talks about aren't fresh and they're not new. Open borders. We had that in the 1800s, early 1900s. Let everybody in that we can. Universal health care. It's been talked about ad nauseum since I'm 66 years old. It's been talked about forever. But let millions come in like we did in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and bring up our population and bring a workforce in. All those things have been talked about for decades. So she's not new, and neither are the ideas you bring apart aren't new. They've been rejected for a good. They've been rejected for a good reason.
So going back to the fundamental question, we agree that there is tyranny in our government, in legislative branch and the executive branch. We know that.
Corruption is probably more accurate.
Yeah, corruption run by tyrants. Absolutely.
Well, tyranny and corruption is a little different, but go ahead.
Here's the thing. This is obviously a massive problem. Your solution is to keep doing what we've been doing.
No,
that's not working.
I gave it a solution, but it's too much work. It's the easy solution just to pass laws and have legislators vote.
All right, what's your solution?
Do what we've always done.
It's not working. It's clearly not working. That's my point. It's obviously not working.
You're willing to gamble the whole country on a maybe.
Yes, our whole country has been gambling.
I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to gamble the republic to something that makes you feel better that might work. Maybe.
It's better than having no ideas. It's better than having no solution. Our entire country's history has been gamble after gamble after gamble. We've won some and lost some, but that's reality.
Maybe don't take this the wrong way, because my kids are almost 40. Maybe it's your age. Maybe you just don't have enough life experience to see that. Just because we haven't tried it yet, let's try it and see what happens. I mean, experimentation with probably the greatest, I shouldn't say maybe, the greatest republic that ever lived in the history of the world is a hell of a risk to take.
Our country has been an ongoing experiment, and it's worked out beautifully.
Yeah,
we've won
you
some,
just made my point. It's worked out beautifully.
And we've lost some gambles, and we've won some.
And we're not waiting. You make it sound like we have this crisis right now that we've never experienced a crisis of this level before. That's nonsense.
We are in currently a crisis.
We've been way over our heads higher than this, and we've gotten out of it because of our system.
Again, now I think you and I can agree. We're both looking forward to November. I would assume. I'm very excited to see what happens in November. Right?
It's not going to. The Republicans are going to do very well. I'll take a look. Let's do a guess. I'll say Republicans 53 in the Senate, and they're picking up 31 net seats in the House. That's my prediction. We'll see how close we get.
I do believe that November will be that signal of the people saying, "Hey, we're sick and tired of this crap. We are bringing in new people." If November does prove as a massive red tidal wave that everyone's predicting, then I will concede.
Well, no, we'll look back at Newt Gingrich when Bill Clinton was president. The contract with America. You're probably young. I don't know how old you are, but Republicans picked up over 93 seats. It was historic. If you go through the list of all the Congress members right now, it's a small percent that have been there forever. 70, 80, probably higher have flipped over and constantly turned.
Right.
So that's the point.
Mhm.
There is turnover. Now, you might not like the people that turn over too, but term limits won't fix that either. What I'm saying is 80% of it is a constant turn. And that's the way the founders set it up. And it's really true. Go back and look at the numbers and you'll see a very small percent have been there forever.
And I still believe that term limits can tell people, hey,
but if we're 80%, we were 80% term limited now in a way because of the turnover.
You have a certain amount of time that you need to get these things done.
But you're going to burn 100% to get rid of 20 is what you're doing.
No, it's not 100%. It tells people who just got elected into that position, they have 12 years to get their policies passed. And if you're in the House, you have 6 years to get
I thought the same way you did for a long time. And the problem is, though, you think logically, and you think that everybody else thinks like you. And I thought that when I was a councilman for a very long time. And the fact of the matter is that's not true.
I don't think everyone thinks like me.
Well, you kind of do, because if I show them this, they'll think they're okay with it and they'll go along with it. Everybody thinks they'll be more accountable. It's not really true. And you'll say, well, I'm a new congressman and I'm going to do what's right for the people because I only have 6 years to do it in. It's a fallacy. It's a pipe dream.
So I like my pipe dream. And to be honest with you, it's better than not doing anything at all.
Fix the 20% and not the 80. 80 is fine. Turnover in Congress is very high. Very high.
I will admit that my idea is an idea. But you've provided no other solutions except keep doing what we've been doing. Well, that's not fixing anything. And that's what I think a lot of Americans are.
Again, you sound like the progressives.
And I don't.
That's the same argument. No, that's the same. That's the same argument they use. It's the exact same argument. We haven't tried it yet. It's not working, so let's try it and see what happens. That is their argument.
I do not agree with
Truthfully, it is.
I think the progressive argument is take away individual liberty and take away.
No, that's the fallout. That's the fallout from them. But the argument is the same. We've never done this before. And I'm trying to tell you that what you're trying to do is dangerous. And what you're telling the progressives, what they're trying to do is dangerous. You see the circle that goes round and round here?
And I see your perspective is also a circle. Your perspective is a circle of that won't work. That won't work. We're not
right now, the system is being torn apart. It's pushing out the edges. But the system is held until now.
Well, let me add something. The reason it's the system's getting torn apart is because, like you said, if you put these newer people in there, the bureaucracy is going to be running the government. Well, the fact is, the bureaucracy is already running the government. It's not going to change anything if you do term limits. So, I think
they'll be running it a lot more.
Oh, what are you talking
term
about?
Limits would have them.
They're running it 100% now. You think Biden's running this country? Absolutely not. The bureaucracy is running it.
Yeah.
You think the senators and congressmen are making decisions? No, they are not. What's going on is the bureaucracy has these little like think tanks going around thinking of this crap, giving it to the congressman and making a bill out of it.
And term limits will change that.
I think it will.
It won't change the bureaucracy because they're not term limited out.
I think it will.
Well, that's why we need to get someone in there that will actually fire the whole bureaucracy and try to reform it. But anyway,
and that's Trump. And that's Trump.
All right, guys. I think we've pretty much went past the time. And not only that, I think we're just going to go around in circles in this argument because I don't think either one of you are willing to concede that the other one's right. Well, and I'll go ahead.
It's not right and wrong in the end. It's not.
Well, yeah, it's not. You're right. But
I just think it's too dangerous to try something as radical as that.
And the bottom line, again, like I said a bunch of times, I respect your experience. You know, if I was president, I would absolutely want you on my team because you have the experience. And so, you know, it's one of those things that there's a lot of topics of debate. This is a topic that I'm hopeful in.
I think we got to put our time and effort and energy mentally and physically to do the things we can change and to slowly progress over time. I think this is something that's just grasping at way up instead of let's just start slowly coming from the bottom rather than go from the top down.
Sure. And I understand that perspective.
All right. I hope y'all enjoy. Please share and like this video and go check out John Cordisco and a constitutional vet. I have their links in the description area down at the bottom. I have all their links, and I also have their links in the chat.
And Ben, thanks for your service.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your service as well.
All right. See y'all later. Peace.